Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Chris and I talk all things crochet and about my small business. So if that's something you're interested in, I hope you'll consider subscribing. Today, we are going to talk a little bit more about pricing, kind of rounding out my little series on, is it a series? It's not really a series. It wasn't a series. But I've had a couple of videos about my pricing. The one just before my market video last week, I'll tag it and link it up here. I talked about the formulas that I use to calculate my material costs, as well as a formula to calculate what my retail would be at a market, just kind of based off of what I would like to take home as a net on my different items. In last week's video, I did my market recap where I talked about how much I took home overall. And in today's video, we're going to talk about what that is minus the material costs that I had calculated. And I'm also going to go over some updates I'm making to how I'm pricing things I was missing, and just calculations that needed some fine tuning. I'll tell you how close I was to what I thought my net was going to be versus what my net actually was, and just kind of share all of that information with you. So I'll leave timestamps below as always in case you want to skip around or there's some parts of that you're not interested in. Before we start that, I just wanted to go over a couple things that I forgot from last week's video. As I was going back and editing it, I'm like, oh, I forgot to talk about those things. But one thing I didn't forget but noticed when I was editing was there was a cup in the frame the entire time. And I'm so sorry for that. I try to make sure that there's not distracting things. It drives me nuts. It was my own kind of Game of Thrones Starbucks coffee cup moment. But yeah, that was really annoying, but zooming in would have been too much. So I just kind of left it. Apologies for that. But the one thing I did forget to mention in that video that I wanted to go over was the shirt that I was wearing. So I wanted to let you guys know what kind of came about with that. A while back, I joined Sticker Mule's mailing list. And what they'll do is they'll send out these little, like I would call them flash deals, where they have a certain product that's on sale, free shipping and everything. And you can kind of get almost like a sampler size of something that you would need for a business. And I had received an email from them saying that they had DTF transfers, 10 of them for 20 bucks, including free shipping. So I jumped on the deal, put my logo in there and had them sent out. And then Mr. Skein has access to a t-shirt press at his work, so he just took those for me and had them pressed. The shirts were the same shirts that you see me wearing all the time that I get from Amazon for like 12 to 15 bucks. So yeah, for a couple bucks extra, we had some branded shirts, and I really loved the way it looked. It made me feel polished and like my little business was all together at the market. So that's what I'll be wearing going forward. I did one in a long sleeve and I did one in a short sleeve t-shirt, especially for those outdoor markets. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I might get a tank top one pressed, but we'll see. The other thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention was the sales times each day that were the peak. So as you can see here on my first day, which is in the light blue, my highest sales hour was from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. We were still pretty busy from 12 to 1. It tapered off from like 1 to 2. It was pouring rain outside. That could be why, I'm not sure. And then things picked up again around 3, and then the market ended at 4. On the second day, you can see in the dark blue, my peak hour was at 1 p.m. Everyone kind of warned me that it would be a little slower in the morning because people go to church and stuff like that on Sundays. So, you know, I didn't see it as a terrible difference. It was weird because I thought it was going to feel a lot slower on Sunday than it did. And it was slower in sales. It was about half as much as I did on Saturday. But the day on Sunday really flew by a lot more than the slow lull times of Saturday. So I also wanted to mention, I briefly touched on it, but I had put all of my minis in a little crate type basket. Anything that's kind of on my table, I want a certain aesthetic for. So I like the dark woods and the grassy kind of look. I put all of the minis in there and I had a sign, and that was a huge hit. And I've heard from other folks that do markets that people really love to dig through baskets. And boy, that was super true at that market. It drew a lot of people in. I think they just saw the $5 and kind of navigated over thinking, oh, something for $5. But some people really got into it. Like there was this one girl who literally dug through until she found every frog that was in there so that she could hold them up to each other. And she kind of process of elimination decided which frog she was taking home or which one was best in her eyes. So if it's something that you're considering doing, I highly recommend it. The bags that I brought ended up being a huge hit as well. And what I really loved was because of the way the lights were in the convention center, particular, I could spot them from like a mile away. I could see my bags shimmering, which made me really happy. So I'm really, really happy with the choice I made for those as well. And then when it came to kind of the freebie sticker thing, I've had a lot of great comments and suggestions and ideas that I'm going to try going forward. What I ended up doing for this particular market was I did make little sticker packs with the care card and a couple of freebie stickers in it. And what I would do is, as someone was checking out, I'd say, I'm going to give you a care card. Would you like some freebie stickers? And if they said yes, then I gave them the freebie stickers. If they were like, nah, then I just dropped the care card in. So I had both kind of at my checkout area, so I could give them either or. But I will admit that I forgot to give a lot of people a care card in general. I think that it was just so hectic at times that I would forget to ask them or even put one in there. Some people didn't want a bag and it was just weird. I don't know. So I don't think it's the end of the earth because I don't, it's not a wearable that I have just yet. So it's not something that they actually have to launder or anything. And I think most people know to spot clean things, but, and you can Google it. But yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to work going forward. That's something that I want to give some consideration to, maybe not necessarily for this coming market, but markets in the future. I don't know. What do you guys do? Let me know in the comments what you do. Like, do you give a care card out? I was thinking about just linking to the website on my business card and then they can see the care instructions online. That might be something that I change up, in future markets. And then last but not least, when I did my pricing video and I was trying to figure out what got what price, I had those little mini bullet bees that I wasn't really a fan of. And I definitely did not think that they were worth $5 as far as purchasing them in comparison to the little sitting bees that I had. So what I ended up doing was just kind of putting them up at the front counter. And I would do certain things where, I would say, hey, you were my first sale of the day, so you get to choose a freebie. Would you like a brown one or a black one? And people really liked that. So I would just give them a little freebie, or like if they had a pretty large order, one that I was like, wow, you bought like 3 or 5 things, I would say, your order qualifies for a freebie. Which one would you like? And people really liked that. I gave away probably about half of what I had, maybe. So I have plenty for the next market, and I'll probably do the same thing there. Whether or not I make more once I run out, I'm not sure. All right, that's all the stuff that I forgot to mention in the last video. So let's get started on today's topic and talk all about the money. I'm going to be looking down at my screen so that I can make sure all of my numbers are correct. I worked out all of these calculations and everything, but I just want to make sure that I give you the right information and don't have to correct myself on screen. So where we left off was my total sales from the market was $1,459. I had subtracted $95.50 for taxes, $35.91 for square fees, and the $250 booth fee, which brought me a net of $1,077.59. Now, what I realized was I forgot to account for a fee. I had that one lonely little Venmo transaction for $12, which resulted in a 32-cent fee. So once I subtract that, my actual net changes to $1,077.27. Now, I want to get rid of that booth fee for just a minute here because I want to talk about pricing of the actual plushies and the costs involved of selling them regardless of the particular market. So if I take that out, my net on product alone and fees incurred for that product is $1,327.27. Now we're going to take a look at each of these fees and my calculations and things to see how close I was with my Notion numbers versus the actual. All right, let's start with just that net number. In my Notion database, I had a calculation where I'd put in what I'd like to take home. It would give me a retail, then again, subtract all those fees and tell me what it thought I would take home. And the actual net for this market was $1,327.27. Again, not counting that booth fee, product only. And my calculated number in Notion was $1,323.19. So I was only $4.08 off in my calculation, and I actually never expect my calculation to match 100%, and I'm okay with that. There's a few different reasons for that not adding up. One of the main reasons for that is that I am taking out a square fee in my calculation for every single item. So anything bought via cash is not going to have that square fee applied. So again, I don't ever expect my number to be spot on, but I was really pleased at the fact that I estimated I would take home a little bit less than I actually did. And that would be my preference. If my number's going to be off, I would hope that I'm calculating too much on the fee side and too little on the take home side so that I'm, happier with what happens versus what I expected. All right, let's break each of the fees down. I am going to have to pay $95.50 in taxes, and in Notion, I had calculated $92.68. So I was off by $2.82. And for me, I was off in the wrong direction. I did some fiddling with my formula to try to figure out why that was off. And I think the reason for my being off in the taxes is just kind of how I calculated with quantities. So in my database, I'll have, let's say that I have 2 of something. And the way my formula was calculating is it was basically taking the cost of the 2 items and multiplying it by 2 and then taking out fees and things like that when things are more likely sold individually or could be bundled. So I no longer expect my tax number to match exactly. So an example of that is something that I'm charging $15 retail for is actually a cost of the item to the customer of $14.16 plus tax, which is 84 cents. But if you look at an item that is $30, so 2 times that, the cost of the item is actually $28.25 and the tax is $1.75. So just looking at those 2 tax numbers, 84 cents times 2 is $1.68, not $1.75. So it's just a matter of ratios in how the tax is being applied based on the purchase price. I know that was a lot, and it was a lot for me to kind of absorb, but basically all that to say my tax number is never going to be exact anyway because the tax comes off of the total retail essentially versus I don't know how items are going to sell. If it's 1 by 1, those little pennies add up, so the number's never going to match. I hope that makes sense. All right, let's talk about fees. In particular, I'm going to talk about square fees because I'm applying a square fee to everything. The Venmo fee is slightly lower, so if someone buys something in Venmo and they happen to use that, then it's just going to be a little less. And again, my estimation for fees is a little higher than what it actually turns out to be. And I am applying it to every item, even though some may be paid for with cash. But for this particular market, I'm paying $36.23 in fees. And in my Notion database, I calculated $54.67, which was a difference of $18.76, which I am happy with because again, I was only applying a square fee to everything versus some things have no fees. The other thing that made that calculation slightly off is I was really unsure of how Square applies their fees. So I'm just going to show you what I did to kind of wrap my brain around how that works so that you're aware as well in case this is something that you're interested in doing and have not started yet. But essentially what I was thinking was if I make a total of X dollars, Square's taking 2.5% of that plus 15 cents per transaction. So my original calculation was I took that retail, I multiplied it by the 0.026, so the 2.6%, and then I would subtract 15 cents per item as if it was sold individually. And that is what I thought the fees were going to be. But actually what happens with Square is they have to take the taxes out first. So my original number included them taking fees on the taxes and they don't do that and they can't do that. So that's also where that number was a little bit off. So now what my new formula is doing is it's taking that retail, it is minusing the taxes, and then we're taking that number and multiplying it by the 0.026 and minusing the 15 cents to calculate the fees. So while I'll still be over because not everything's going to get a fee, I'll be a little bit closer in my estimation going forward. Now, I want to take a look at this particular market and what my true net ends up after materials and everything considered. So as we said originally, when I do include that booth fee, my net from the market was $1,077.27. I calculated all of the materials, which is a bit inflated as we discussed in that video because I give a buffer to everything that I'm charging in there. My material cost was $453.35. And that gives me a profit of $623.92, which is a profit margin of roughly 58%. Now, you may be thinking, wow, that's a lot, because it is a lot. But I want to remind everyone that as a whole, my business is in the red. And I am in the red by a lot because that one market is my really one big earning experience. I've sold some things on Etsy. We've already talked about that. I have not made good money on Etsy because I was not calculating pricing very well. I included free shipping. The fees are astronomical, as everyone knows. So there will be some future videos because after this next market, I'm doing a complete Etsy overhaul, repricing with my new calculations, everything, and we're going to get that thing spruced up. But anyway, that's besides the point. This is the market chat. But as a whole, Enchanted Skein is in the hole. As a whole, we're in the hole. Because I have spent a lot of money on this year. I don't anticipate, I would probably need four more markets at that kind of profit margin to break even. And that might sound crazy, and some of it might be. I will tell you, I have spent money on things I did not need to spend money on. I didn't need a shirt, I didn't need fancy bags. I didn't need certain things, but this has become my passion. I have no problem with spending it. I am blessed in the sense that I'm okay to do so. My bills are paid. Don't worry, so I'm okay with that, but it's a realistic thing for people who are thinking about doing this. You can certainly cut costs so that X many markets in, you could be making some money, but this is not something where, it's a super fluid, lucrative thing where you're just getting all this money in. People can look at it and go, wow, you made $1,000 over the weekend. No, I made $1,000 over 20 weeks of market prep, to create these things and all of the work and expenses that went into setting this thing up. I am very much still in the hole. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. That was not the expectation. My goal, if you're new here, or even if you're not, as a reminder, is to pay for my hobby, to enjoy this as long as I enjoy it, to do what I love to do, and, hopefully make some money in the meantime. It's not going to supplement my full-time income, and I'm okay with that. But I enjoy it, and it's nice to, earn something for what you enjoy. My plan is to do kind of a full year-end recap. It probably won't be at the end of the year. It'll probably be towards the beginning of the new year, but I am going to break down everything that I've spent on this business this last year. I will tell you, it'll probably be slightly off in the sense that I did not track a lot of my yarn purchases in the beginning because I didn't know I was going to do this. And I had a lot of yarn already stocked up before I decided to create Enchanted Skein. But I'm going to go over everything I bought for the markets. A lot of these expenses are one-time expenses, but they're going to pay for themselves in the long run. Things like tables, tablecloths, the tent, all that good stuff. So if it's something that you're interested in, leave a comment down below, or if there's anything particular that you'd like me to call out or list out for you, definitely leave it in the comments down below. My goal with all of this is to just kind of share everything, but if there's particulars that maybe I miss or don't call out, definitely let me know. All right, market talk over. This is the part of the video where I show you this week's makes. Here they are. I don't have anything to show you this week, unfortunately. I will say that my plan for market prep for this next market was I wrote out everything that I wanted to make each week. I have that scheduled and planned. I have a goal set for each week, and I'm going to share with you what I'm planning for that week, and we'll see how well I stick to that goal. Some of it is a little ambitious, but we're going to see what we can do. But the reason that I don't have anything for you is things were thrown off a little bit this week. So what I really wanted to make this week was a lot of mini sitting bees. Those were a huge hit. I'm going to be using those in my mystery bag charms as well as the mini bin. So I have on my list to make 20 of those. And I did get started. I started hustling. And the other evening we went out to dinner, and my dog Hera decided out of nowhere to take my project bag off of the couch, which is always sitting on the couch and has never been bothered before. But she took it off the couch and she proceeded to spill its contents everywhere and chew on it. Chew on almost everything she could get her little grubby paws on. And she ate 4 mini sitting bee bodies. They were empty. They didn't have eyes. I hadn't stuffed them. I'm doing everything kind of, prep style. And I went back and looked at the camera footage because I was like, I can't remember how many I had. I wasn't 100% sure. She ate 4 of them. If you're worried about her health, don't worry. She's okay. She is passing them. Other than the fact that she's slightly concerned because she feels a bit like a clown with the handkerchiefs, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. She's okay. The vet said as long as she passes them, we're fine. That is happening. It is just, I'll save you the details. But yeah, I would have at least some to show you, but the dog ate my yarn work. I had to throw away a lot of it because she just put her mouth all over it. So we're a bit starting back at square one. But let's share next week's goals so you'll know what I'm going to be showing you, I hope, if I achieve this. My goal for the next video is to show you 20 mini sitting bees. I'm going to do 5 in brown and I think 15 in the black because people definitely did like the black more, but I want to have a few of the brown. And I want to make, 3 to 5 of the what I would call regular size sitting bees. So this size, I don't know what that means to you, but the little sitting bees, kind of like my zombie style, my Mothman size. But anyway, so that's the goal for next week. I am now making sure that my market bag is nowhere to be reached by anyone when we're not home. Yeah, and she's doing fine. She knew. It was funny because my other dog, you could see him on the camera. He was looking at her and he was just like, "You are not supposed to be doing that. I am not partaking in this." And he just went and laid down in the other area. So I was very proud of him. But anyway, yeah. So that's my story for this week. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope the information is helpful when it comes to the pricing. But either way, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.